VP pick, J.D. Vance, is so extreme, in fact, that despite the ex-president's efforts to distance himself from the radical Project 2025 agenda, J.D. Vance ties him right back to it, and bigly. Vance wrote the foreword of a yet-to-be-released book written by Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts, who is the architect of Project 2025. What the GOP is presenting to the American people is a very unlikable duo, according to the polls. A CNN analysis finds that J.D. Vance is the first vice presidential pick to have a net negative favorable rating immediately after that party's convention. His rating is 25 points below the average VP pick since 2000, -6 points compared to +19. In addition to being a convicted criminal, the GOP's choice to lead this country is the oldest presidential candidate in American history. We were hearing from someone who used to be so very close to him, so utterly cruel. Fred Trump. He's Donald Trump's nephew. He's Mary Trump's brother, has a brand new memoir, comes out next week. And about it, the New York Times writes this, quote, Fred Trump's son was born with a rare medical condition that led to developmental and intellectual disabilities. After Trump was elected, Fred Trump wanted to use his connection to the White House for good. The president seemed engaged, especially when several people in our group spoke about the heart-wrenching and expensive efforts they'd made to care for their profoundly disabled family members, he writes. After the meeting, Fred Trump claims his uncle pulled him aside and said, quote, maybe those kinds of people should just die, end quote, given, quote, the shape they're in, all the expenses. The remark wasn't a one-off, though, according to Fred Trump, Donald Trump's nephew. A couple years later, when he called his uncle, Donald Trump, for help because the medical fund that paid for his son's care was running out of money, Fred Trump claims his uncle said this, quote, I don't know. He doesn't recognize you. Maybe you should just let him die and move down to Florida. That's on the menu, voters. Trump campaign spokesman called this account completely fabricated, total fake news of the highest order. It's where we start the hour. Some of our favorite experts and friends, the executive director of Republican Voters Against Trump, the publisher of The Bulwark, Sarah Longwell's here, plus the host of the Independent Americans podcast, co-founder of American Veterans for Ukraine, Paul Rykoff's here. Lucky for us, Eddie stuck around. Paul, let me start with you, and let me just put two more pieces of reporting into the record. There's this harrowing account from Donald Trump's nephew, Fred Trump. There's this reporting from The Atlantic on on Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley. Quote, Milley had chosen a severely wounded Army captain, Luis Avila, to sing God Bless America. Avila, who had completed 5 combat tours, had lost a leg in an IED attack in Afghanistan, had suffered 2 heart attacks, 2 strokes, and brain damage as a result of his injuries. After Avila's performance, Trump walked over to congratulate him, but then said to Chairman Milley, within earshot of several witnesses, quote, why do you bring people like that here? No one wants to see that. The wounded. Never let Avila appear in public again, Trump told Milley. Trump's disgust for the disabled, for the wounded. He mocked a journalist, a disabled journalist, in his 2016 campaign. His disdain for the disabled is a matter of public record.
His disdain for everyone. I mean, this is who he is. He just continues to reveal it over and over again. He's a man with no character, a man with no honor, a man with no integrity, and he's doubling down on it. He's also feeling good. I mean, he was coming out of the convention arrogant, and I think that's why he made his biggest political miscalculation in a while in picking J.D. Vance, who just compounds his base, is equally extreme, is a Putin apologist, and is the fakest person on the planet. I mean, he is the Captain King czar of fakery, and it's gone with a thud. And I think it's a real miscalculation because independents are still key. Harris, I don't think, is going to be much more popular with independents than Trump is, and it's going to be a battle over the middle. And this is a massive miscalculation because Vance gets him nothing with independents, and it provides an opening and an opportunity for Harris and the Democrats to pick someone who is moderate, who will appeal to independents, who is strong on national security, who is good on Ukraine. So this is a very dynamic situation, and they know who he is, and now they can take advantage of it.
Trump's ire at Mary Trump is a matter of public record as well. He now has another family member telling, I don't know that you could tell something more damaging about a human being than their hatred for the most vulnerable people in our society.
It's pathological. My sister, my mother's been changing diapers for 60 years. Had German measles when she was pregnant as a young woman. My sister can't walk, can't talk, can't hear. She's never had a bed sore. She's never been institutionalized. My mother's been changing her diapers for 60 years, and this man is going to say something like that to her? It gives you a sense of the depth of the depravity of him, right, and how he thinks about the most vulnerable. And J.D. Vance, what did Jamie Raskin call him, a shillbilly? Right? I mean, he's basically trafficking in old arguments that we could trace back to the early 20th century about poor white people. Old arguments about quote-unquote trailer trash. That's the substance of the hillbilly elegy, right? So these are the folk who are going to speak to the heart and mind and material existence of everyday working people. I mean, we can't fall for this nonsense. I mean, they're revealing who they are, what their characters actually entail, it seems to me.
Sarah Longwell, what are voters making of Trump's selection of J.D. Vance?
Well, let me just say on this point really quickly and tell Eddie I love him there. You know, the thing is that this goes to the central flaw of Donald Trump's campaign, which is that Donald Trump doesn't care about people. He's a bad person, and he's in it for himself, right? He's running for president to stay out of jail. He's running for president to raise money to pay his legal bills. He's not running for president because he cares about America. He actually thinks America is a pretty lousy place, the way he talks about it. And he doesn't care about the American people because he doesn't care about people. That's just not who he is. And when it comes to J.D. Vance, you know, obviously J.D. Vance was a never Trumper like we were. I still am, but he is now Trump's vice president. And I think it strikes right at the heart of who he is to be somebody who could call Trump America's Hitler, say that he's cultural heroin, be very clear-eyed about who Trump is, and then go on to suck up to him in order to get a Senate seat, and then be the most pliant in order to get selected for vice president. And the thing is that voters see that stuff. Right? That's not lost on them. And so when I listen to swing voters, as we've been talking about J.D. Vance since the selection, you know what they know about him? They know that he used to be against Trump. They know that he used to talk about Trump in very clear-eyed terms, and that now he's sucking up to him. And they see that for what it is. And so to the extent that they know anything about him, it really is that point that he is somebody who did an about-face on Trump. And so that makes them call into question his character. And so it's really something to have managed to put together a full ticket of characterless people.
What is the state of the race today, Sarah?
Well, the state of the race is completely different than the last time I was on, which was maybe last week or something. I mean, we're in a whole new world. And frankly, I'm excited about that world.
Yeah, me too.
You know, Eddie and I were together the night of that catastrophic debate, and he and I were on the same page about what we saw that night, which was we thought, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, was campaign ending. And so to have the party come together, make what is an unbelievably difficult choice, demonstrates that we still have one sane adult political party capable of doing hard things. And then the way that they've consolidated around Kamala Harris and the way that she has comported herself since becoming the purported nominee has been nothing short of excellent. And let me tell you something. If you had asked me 4 years ago if I would be enthusiastic about Kamala Harris, I'm sure I would have said no. But I think that she has grown a ton. We are seeing that demonstrated right now. I think that she has injected so much new life into this campaign, into the party. And look, I think I've been listening to voters talk about Kamala Harris for a long time, and the number one thing that they say about her is they're like, look, I don't know, I don't really see much of her. What does she do? I don't know. The thing is that's where they get sort of a broad negative impression of her, but it also means that they don't feel like they know her. right? It means that there is upside there. It means that she can reintroduce herself to the country right now and bring them along with her. And from what I've seen so far, she is doing that. And I think the Trump campaign is terrified because I think they built an entire campaign to run on the context of age and infirmity. And guess what? Now Trump has to live in that narrative while he's the old man running against generational change.
Yes. Yes, Sarah, absolutely. We were in that room in Aspen and our mouths were just wide open, trying to figure out what just happened and what was to follow. And what's so striking about this current moment for me, Nicolle, is the quickness of it. Yes. We were in the midst of a betrayal, of a backlash when the ugly underbelly of America was in full view. And in an instant, a moment that I could not have anticipated in so many ways, the possibility of the future opened up again. I'm not trying to make Kamala Harris, Ella Baker, or Fannie Lou Hamer. The only thing I'm saying is that for a moment, I thought the past had swallowed up America's promise, that the ugliness of our ghosts had us by the throat and we couldn't breathe. And here we have a moment where the nation faces a choice. And it's Vice President Harris is talking about past and future. I'm talking about we actually have a chance where the differences that make us who we are no longer tied down by the hatreds that constitutes the undertow. So it's a really extraordinary moment for me.
It's going to be 2 days in a row that people have made me cry. Let me challenge you on independence. I think there's this false idea of who Kamala Harris was when she ran, and I think there's this reality of who she's become. And who she's become is someone who singularly dismantled Bill Barr, Brett Kavanaugh, and Jeff Sessions bullshit as a United States Senator. Who she is someone who never wobbled after that debate performance, and I experienced it the way you two did. She didn't. She went on TV moments after it ended and said, I'm not going to let 90 minutes define 3.5 years of accomplishment. And she put the campaign, the Biden-Harris campaign, on her back and carried it for 3.5 weeks. I think it's someone who hasn't said a word about her own race and identity. Her speeches are about the future and the past. They're not about her. She is the only candidate in the public arena not talking about herself. And I think if you're I don't do campaigns anymore, but I used to. And the thing that made them recoil was this idea that they owed anyone anything, that they owed anyone their vote. They're looking for someone to earn it. And there's only one person trying to earn anyone's vote, and it's Kamala Harris.
I think that's true, and I think she's going to have to do that now. But I think there's also some built-in headwinds that she's facing in reaching independents and reaching Republicans. The Democratic brand is not popular with independents. It's not popular with other people who aren't Democrats. Right now, 51% of the country is independent, and that number is going up. You've still got the factor of RFK Jr., who I don't think is a real independent, who's not getting support from independents, but is on the board. So the question is, how does she make that case? How does she show she is moderate? How does she rebrand herself and rebrand the party and appeal to independents and give them some comfort? And I think a lot of that comes with her VP pick. And she's got to pick someone who is honorable, who has integrity, who is trustworthy, who's viewed as not really a Democrat or a moderate Democrat. I think it's Mark Kelly. I think it's Mark Kelly because everybody likes astronauts. Everybody trusts astronauts. He's also a combat fighter pilot, did 25 years in the Navy. He comes from Arizona, and he's kind of like the next generation Democrat spirit of a John McCain, right? He's got the maverick in him, and he's trusted to be commander-in-chief. And you need a strong national security argument in this environment that will make independents and Republican moderates feel good with this ticket. And I think he's the obvious choice and heads and leaps above everyone else.
Sarah, your thoughts about what will be her next big decision, selecting a running mate?
Well, look, I'm partial to Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is a must-win state. It just is. Like, it's the tipping point state. It's the one you need. It's very big. He's extremely